Like, one of the things about jiu-jitsu, this is a very important lesson for anybody who knows jiu-jitsu, because a lot of people don't like this aspect of jiu-jitsu. Some people have this meathead idea that the way to get good at jiu-jitsu is to go against the hardest guys, get your ass kicked, and that's how you learn. Actually, that's the wrong way to learn. The best way to get good at jiu-jitsu is to strangle blue belts. You go and you find people that are just learning, but they're not as good as you, and you choke the fuck out of them. That's how you get really good at your technique. And people say, well, that's bullying. Well, it is important for the blue belt to, at some point, spar with black belts. It is important. Because or purple belts or brown belts, because you need to know that there's a higher level of proficiency, there's a higher level of skill, and then there's a shorter distance in between points that these guys are hitting. They're cutting the chase. They're capitalizing on very small openings, and they clamp down. And when they capitalize on these small openings, they get submissions quicker. So you have to know that there are guys that are better. That's important. But to drill, the most important thing is drilling. And when you drill with like someone of your level, and you just practice on each other. Like, you choke me, and you'll do it like twice, and I'll choke you, I'll do it twice, and it's just practice. And maybe you'll resist like 50%. Like, sometimes, like, when you're doing a drill and I'll pretend to be resisting, I'll resist like a little bit so that you strangle me and choke, because that simulates real life, simulates how it'd be, and you're supposed to be building your muscle memory. But the real way to do it, after you do that, to get it really sharp, is to practice on people with a limited amount of proficiency, just to choke the shit out of them. So that's like the way that you ultimately get better, is to practice on people that aren't quite as good as you. And then you eventually develop, and you get to a point where, that seems kind of impractical, So the idea by that is, the real problem with that is, if you're in a school and say you're the only white belt and everybody else is a brown belt or a black belt and you're training with them, fuck, man, you might not ever get good. Like, you just might get wrecked all the time. And that's the idea with kids that are in sports that are so much younger than everyone else in their class. Or if you're pretentious and you're precocious and they bring you into class earlier, he skipped a grade. So you're in 7th grade now, Billy. Well, you got to go to 7th grade football? Good luck, you little fuck. Yeah. You're going to get run over. If you are a guy who just has a fantastic physique and incredible speed and ridiculous power, you just can generate ridiculous power. If Deontay Wilder has fantastic power, I mean, he just knocks people flying across the ring. I think Deontay Wilder, if he just came off the street, if he was 25 years old and no one ever taught him how to box at all, and you just wrapped his hands up and had him hit a bag, he would be able to generate insane amounts of force. Now, if you were a person that really didn't have much power and you had a box with Deontay Wilder and you were both of the same age and you were a person that knew boxing and you stood in front of Deontay, it's entirely possible that Deontay Wilder could knock you into another dimension, even though he had no experience in boxing. If he just held on you and hit you with a haymaker, he might be able to put you out. If you're a person who is, let's say, built like you, a guy who exercises, who's strong, and then there's someone who's identically built like you, who's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you don't have any experience in martial arts at all, you're fucked. Right?
Yes.
If you're a person who's built like you, who's a guy who exercises and is healthy, and you grapple with a guy who's even stronger than you and bigger than you, but he has no experience in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's still fucked. Yeah. That's the difference. That's why I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo and wrestling in particular, those are absolutes in that you have control of the body.
Yes.
And once you grab a hold of a person's body, there's no lucky triangle chokes in Jiu-Jitsu. My experience with jiu-jitsu was very humbling when I first started out. I had a long background in martial arts and striking, and even wrestled in high school. And then I started taking jiu-jitsu, and a guy who was my size, and I was young at the time, and he was basically close to my age, just mauled me. And he wasn't even a black belt. I think he was a purple belt. He might have been a blue belt. I think he was a purple belt. And he just destroyed me. Just did anything he wanted to me. Choked me, armbarred me, and I remember thinking, man, I am so delusional. I thought I had a chance.
Right.
Like, I thought just based on taking a couple classes and learning what an armbar is, and then being a strong person who has a background in martial arts, that I would be able to at least hold him off a little bit. It's also what martial arts are supposed to be, in that a small person who knows technique can beat a big person who doesn't know the technique.
That's right.
That's what we always hoped for, right? When we saw the Bruce Lee movies, and Bruce Lee, who was a smaller guy, could beat all these bigger guys just because he had better technique.
Yeah.
That is actually real in jiu-jitsu, and it's one of the only martial arts where that's real.